The fence post on the west side of Earl Meacham's property line went into the ground in 1961. It is still there. The cedar is dark, almost black, hard as a knuckle when you knock on it. No soft spots, no rot, no gray. Across the road, a fence stained with bare premium semi-transparent 3 years ago is already splitting at the grain and fading to the color of old newspaper. The 1961 post was never touched by anything sold in a store. Earl's father treated it with used motor oil drained from a Ford 601 tractor. That post has outlived 2 trucks, 3 dogs, and every gallon of commercial stain on every fence within a mile of it. And the treatment cost him nothing. Last spring, I was pulling out a section of my own fence that had gone soft after 4 years. I had paid $38 a gallon for what the label promised was a 5-year exterior wood stain. It made it to year 3 before the south-facing boards looked like they had never been touched. That is when I started asking questions. The answers cost the fence stain industry a customer for life. The stain aisle at any Home Depot or Lowe's is 40 feet of color-coded promises. Thompson's water seal at $28 a gallon. Cabot semi-transparent at $38 a gallon. DFE Extreme at $50 a gallon. Bear Premium at $36 a gallon. Every label says the same thing in different words: protect your wood, preserve your investment, reapply every 2 to 3 years. That last part is the business model, not the product, the business model. A standard 200-foot privacy fence has roughly 2,400 square feet of surface when you count both sides. At realistic coverage rates, that fence eats 12 to 16 gallons of stain per application. The material alone runs $400 to $700. Add a $60 pressure washer rental, $40 in wood cleaner and brightener, and a weekend of your life. Multiply that by 7 or 8 applications over 20 years, and you are looking at $3,200 to $5,500 in materials. If you hire it out, double that, triple it in some markets. A contractor in the Dallas-Fort Worth area quoted me $1,800 for a single application of Cabot on a 200-foot fence. I'll let you do the math on that one over 2 decades. This is not accidental. Sherwin-Williams owns Cabot, Thompson's Water Seal, Olympic, and Valspar. One company controls 4 of the top-selling fence stain brands on the market. The U.S. wood stain industry hit $2.3 billion in 2023 and is projected to reach $4.9 billion by 2034. That kind of growth does not come from selling products that last. It comes from selling products that need replacing. I still don't understand why the failure rate doesn't bother more people. Most semi-transparent stains start showing UV fade within 18 months on a south-facing surface. Film-forming solids trap moisture underneath and peel. Water-based acrylics chalk. Oil-based stains mildew in humid climates. The $50 a gallon DFE Extreme, marketed as advanced nanotechnology, showed visible wear within 2 seasons in independent field tests. The industry is not selling protection, it is selling a subscription. But here's where most people stop, and here's why that's a mistake. The reason you have never seen used motor oil on a shelf next to Thompson's Water Seal is not that it doesn't work, it is that the people who used it stopped being the target customer. Between 1950 and 1970, the American suburban population nearly doubled to 74 million. Home ownership climbed from 44% to 62%. Home Depot opened in 1978 and put a stain aisle in front of every new homeowner in the country. In 2003, the EPA restricted creosote and CCA, the 2 most effective consumer wood preservatives ever made, to certified industrial applicators only. The old knowledge didn't fail. The old customer disappeared. And a $2.3 billion industry moved in to replace what farmers had been doing for free. The practice goes back to the early 1900s, right alongside the first tractors. When internal combustion engines arrived on American farms, they created a waste product that had no obvious use. Dirty crankcase oil could not be fed to livestock. It could not be burned in a lamp. So farmers did what farmers do with anything useful. They put it on the fence. In East Texas, a man named Bunyan Harrell soaked pine fence posts in used motor oil starting in 1928. Mother Earth News profiled him in 1974 when he was 81 years old. His posts were still in service. 46 years in the ground, no rot, no replacement. Commercially pressure-treated posts from the same era had failed in 18 to 20 years. In Pennsylvania and Ohio, Amish communities developed what became known as the Amish mix, a 50-50 blend of used motor oil and diesel fuel. They brushed it on barns and sheds that are still standing more than 50 years later. The chemistry is not complicated. Used motor oil is roughly 80% hydrocarbon-based stock, long carbon chains that penetrate deep into wood cell walls and coat the internal surfaces like wax on a cotton wick. Wood rots because fungi need moisture above 20% to colonize. The oil displaces that moisture and seals the path it travels. On top of that, motor oil carries zinc from an additive called ZDDP at concentrations between 600 and 3,000 parts per million. Zinc is a known antimicrobial. It is the same element used in modern commercial wood preservation systems, repackaged at 10 times the markup. A 2021 study published in the journal Forest by researchers at Voronezh State University confirmed what ranchers already knew. Using FTIR spectroscopy, they showed that waste engine oil improved dimensional stability in birchwood by 56.8% and provided significant resistance to biological decay. Makerere University in Uganda ran termite exposure trials and found that oil-treated wood survived 30 weeks. Untreated wood lasted 4 weeks. I talked to a retired rancher at the Amarillo livestock auction last fall who had been oiling his fence line since 1974. He said his corner posts had never been replaced. He also said nobody under 50 had ever asked him about it. Now stay with me here, because the part that matters is what happens when you actually do it. I picked the worst section of my back 40 fence for the test. It was south-facing, full sun, cedar boards that had gone silver gray and were starting to check at the ends. I had been saving used oil from every oil change for a year, 6 buckets of 5 quarts each sitting in the shop. I poured the oil into a clean 5-gallon bucket and cut it 50-50 with diesel, which I bought at the pump for about $4 a gallon. The diesel thins the oil, drops the viscosity, and lets it soak deeper into the grain. The mix came out the color of strong black coffee. I loaded an $18 pump sprayer from Tractor Supply and started on the first board around 9 in the morning. The temperature was already pushing 90. The wood was bone dry, which is what you want. The first coat went on thin and dark, and the smell was exactly what you would expect from a shop floor on a hot day. What surprised me was the speed. That dry cedar drank the first coat in less than 20 minutes. I could watch the sheen disappear as the oil pulled itself into the grain. I came back with an old 4-inch brush for the second coat and worked it into every split, every check, every end grain cut. This is the part most people get wrong. They spray one coat and walk away. I did the same thing the first time I tried this on a gate post, and the protection was thin and uneven within a year. The second coat is where the wood stops being thirsty, and the oil starts building up inside the fibers. The color deepened from gray to a rich, dark walnut brown. It looked better than anything I had ever put on with a $38 can of stain. A few weeks ago, I showed you how oil saturates every collagen fibril in vegetable tanned leather to keep it from cracking. Same principle at work here. Oil fills the structure, and moisture has no path in. Whether it is cowhide or cedar, the physics do not change. The ground line needed the heaviest treatment. Gravity pulls oil down through the post over time, and moisture pushes up from the soil. That bottom 6 inches is where every fence post dies. I gave it 3 coats, letting each one soak overnight. For the post tops, I used a trick I learned from an old cattleman in the Panhandle. I set a used spin-on oil filter upside down on each post cap and let it drip into the end grain for a week. The oil wicked in slow and deep, right where rain collects and sits. My total cost for 200 feet of fence was 7 gallons of used oil I already had, 7 gallons of diesel at $4 a gallon, and an $18 pump sprayer. That is $46. The contractor wanted $1,800 for 1 coat of Cabot. I checked that fence again 8 months later. The oil-treated section looked exactly the same as the day it dried. The untreated section 30 feet away had already gone from silver to soft. That 1961 post on Earl Meacham's property line is 65 years old now. It is darker than everything around it, harder than the post set beside it 20 years later. It was treated with nothing but drain oil from a tractor that has been scrap metal for 40 years. Every year you buy another gallon of semi-transparent stain and drag out the sprayer for a weekend you will never get back. That post just sits there, not fading, not peeling, not asking to be maintained. They built a $2.3 billion industry on convincing you that fence maintenance requires their product, their schedule, and their price. It does not. It requires the same thing sitting in the drain pan under your truck right now. I want to hear from you. If you have an oil-treated fence, barn, or post that has been standing longer than most marriages, drop the year it was installed in the comments. I want to know how far back this goes. There is one thing I have not figured out yet. The Oregon State Extension Service published research showing that brush on oil application gives virtually no penetration compared to soaking. That finding has me running a side-by-side test right now. Matched pairs of cedar posts, 1 set brushed, 1 set soaked for 60 days. I will show you the results as soon as the ground tells me something. That is coming.